Carrie gets started. So thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. I'm Andy Hickner, and I'm the Education and Outreach Librarian at the Samuel J. Wood Library. As Vanessa mentioned, I'm joined today by Carrie Jedlicka, who is our clinical medical librarian intern. Did anybody make it out to vote today? I walked over this morning, and I was in and out in about 15 minutes. It's super hot outside, so hopefully everybody, if you haven't already voted by absentee, gets a chance to head out and cast a ballot today. So this session assumes that you don't have any experience with PubMed. That said, I think that even those of you who probably do have some experience will still manage to learn some new things today. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to start out by defining PubMed and key differences between PubMed and search engines such as Google and Google Scholar. We'll cover some of the most essential tasks and functionality, including how to get full text of articles through Weill Cornell journal subscriptions and how to refine your search results. And we'll review some resources for getting help and learning more after the session. We are going to start out with a few minutes of lecture, but most of this session is going to be jumping right into PubMed and using it to find answers. We'll use, as Vanessa mentioned, a little live polling to help you check your knowledge, and we'll leave plenty of time at the end to answer your questions. So if you haven't already, either on your phone or on your computer in a browser window, go to pollev.com/Andy Hickner and get my my poll account loaded. We'll give everybody a moment to do that. Okay. So I'll also put this in the chat just in case people need to see it so that we can advance the slides. So we're going to start out with a little icebreaker so that Carrie and I can learn a little bit about who you are and your level of experience with PubMed. First question. Looks like a lot of you have already started the poll. Give it another few seconds to let things settle down. Okay, so it looks like about half of you self-report, a little over half of you self-report that you have a lot of experience with PubMed. This is very useful, and about a quarter or about a fifth of you have no experience at all. Next, we'd like to learn what your primary role at Weill Cornell or NYP is. Whether you're a student, whether you're some kind of clinical trainee, whether you're a member of the faculty, whether you're more research or clinical, or if you're staff, if you're administrative or research. It's like we have lots of faculty and lots of staff, and about almost evenly split. Give you all another couple seconds. So biggest group is staff, and then clinical faculty is our next biggest group. And last, I want to know, what do you primarily use PubMed for, those of you who have already used it? Okay, so most of you, it looks like, are using it for research. I'd be curious to hear those of you who put other. Feel free to post in the chat what you're using PubMed for, because I'd be interested in hearing that. And there are several of you, it looks like. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right, so what is PubMed anyway? PubMed is a free search engine maintained by the US government. The main thing that you use PubMed for is finding articles in biomedical journals. And actually, I'm seeing some answers in chat about what those of you who put other education, updating and maintaining CVs, helping library patrons. That's a big part of our work here at the library. So PubMed is an interface for searching another database called MEDLINE. So MEDLINE is selective in what it indexes. American journals like JAMA and New England Journal of Medicine, for example, tend to be overrepresented, while journals from other countries and research that is published in languages besides English tend to be a little underrepresented. A journal may have existed for years before it starts being indexed in PubMed. Another thing that's missing is, in general, conference proceedings. Often research will be available as a preprint or as a meeting abstract in other sources like Google Scholar or Scopus or Web of Science before it gets published as an article and indexed in PubMed. MEDLINE indexes several thousand biomedical journals. Like PubMed, it's freely available and maintained by us as US taxpayers. One important difference between Google and MEDLINE is that MEDLINE is indexed by humans, whereas Google indexing is done by Google's automated web crawler. And that's something that I want you to remember, because we're going to ask you about that later. PubMed is not the only way to search MEDLINE, by the way, but it is the most common way to search it because it's free. So what are some advantages of PubMed compared to searching, say, Google or Google Scholar? Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. So one is, because the indexing is done by humans, MEDLINE and PubMed both are designed and have features that help you find evidence faster and more efficiently. So for example, PubMed offers ways to filter your search by species, age, sex, publication type, and study design, and language of publication to limit your search. Carrie's going to cover some of how that works when we get to the demo. Another helpful feature is something called Mesh. So those of you who may have taken a PubMed class before, does anybody remember when you took PubMed what Mesh is and what it does, or even what it stands for? So MESH stands for something called medical subject headings. So we've seen it sort of on Instagram, where people have a dozen hashtags for roughly the same thing. It's a very wasteful way to communicate concepts and to link information. So MESH is designed to help solve that problem of all these different synonyms and different ways of saying similar things. MESH searches synonyms and related concepts so that you don't have to type every variation out. MESH are assigned to each article by trained human indexers who've read the article. One of the advanced questions that you all sent Vanessa was, can you search PubMed without knowing anything about MESH? The answer is yes. PubMed automatically tries to match your search terms to MESH. This means you can do more precise searching in PubMed than you can in, say, Google Scholar, which doesn't use human indexing. It can be very useful when researching more complex concepts, like, for example, social determinants of health. If we have time toward the end of the session, we might be able to show a little bit of what I'm talking about. If you want to learn more about MESH, you will definitely want to join us again for next week's Tech Tuesday, because we'll be doing a deep dive into Mesh and how it can make you a more efficient and effective searcher. So here's a question I'd like to pose to all of you. Are articles in PubMed trustworthy? Why or why not? If an article is in PubMed, does that mean the study is of high scientific quality? Why or why not? So what I'm about to tell you is going to be a little bit confusing. For now, don't worry about keeping track of the exact details. PubMed doesn't just include MEDLINE index content. It has a different journal selection process and additional articles, some of which are part of a third database, which is also managed by the National Library of Medicine, called PubMed Central. It's unfortunate that NLM named it PubMed Central because the two databases are completely different and it can be confusing to people. Some of you may have heard of PubMed Central or PMC because you got an NIH grant and were required as part of the grant to deposit your manuscript in PMC. The criteria for indexing in PMC is less rigorous than the criteria for indexing in MEDLINE. In recent years, it's been found that articles in some predatory journals have started to sneak into PubMed Central. Predatory journals are journals that lack rigorous peer review and that operate primarily to make money rather than to advance science. We are planning a Tech Tuesday on predatory publishing later this summer, so keep an eye out for that if you'd like to learn more. We also know that studies are sometimes retracted after publication. Perhaps the most famous example is Andrew Wakefield's study, I'm using air quotes, published in The Lancet about 20 years ago, which claimed to have established an association between vaccination and autism. So what does this mean for you as a searcher? It means you always have to critically appraise studies that you find in PubMed. You have to read beyond the abstract to examine the methodological quality of the study and to evaluate the author's claims. In the demo, Carrie will show you some ways to filter your search to help you find articles with the most appropriate study designs. PubMed also includes this prominent banner when an article is later retracted. This is a useful feature of PubMed that isn't available in Google Scholar. So, time for another poll. Let's see, okay. I want to make sure everyone's clear on the relationship between MEDLINE and PubMed, so let's do another quick quiz. Blank is one of multiple ways to search blank. Okay, I think our answers have more or less stabilized for this. So, good job. Yes, PubMed is one of multiple ways to search MEDLINE. Other ways to search MEDLINE include Ovid MEDLINE, which some of you may have used, and there are even other vendors who offer their own interfaces for searching MEDLINE. So let's pause for a minute and I can try to answer one or two questions that have come up so far in the chat. Doesn't actually look like we have any yet. Okay. In that case, let's move on to, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie, who's going to demo some basic tasks in PubMed for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Jedlicka, and today we're going to talk about some basic tasks in PubMed. We'll explore how to access full text articles, how to use PMIDs, how to request an article via Interlibrary Loan in the event that we don't have the publication. We'll look at how to conduct a very basic search. We'll look at refining searches using filters, sorting search results using display options, and we'll talk about how to create an NCBI account so you can save your search. All right, and now I will share.
I'm going to stop sharing.
So bear with me for just 1 minute. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so we are going to begin our PubMed search from the Weill Cornell Medicine Library homepage. We received a question in advance about how do you search PubMed from home, and this is exactly what you should do. So you want to scroll down to popular e-resources and PubMed. New version is the first on the list. So you want to use this special link to PubMed because it will allow you to see all the journals and publications that Weill Cornell Medicine has access to. If you just go to PubMed without going through this link, you're not going to see that information. So this is where you want to start. And at some point in the process, you will be prompted to log in with your seaweed. Okay, so here we are on the PubMed homepage. So we have our basic search bar. Down at the bottom, you see there are more resources such as the MESH database, some learning tools, and some different search tools. We're not really going to go into that much today, but as Andy mentioned, we have a session coming up on more advanced PubMed where we'll delve a little more into this. So let's do a very basic search. Let's say I need to find some publications on breast cancer. So I will search for that here. Okay, so I have my results. So in fact, I have over 400,000 results. That's quite a lot. We'll just take a little bit of a look at this page in case this is the first time for everyone. We see our results on the right, and we see some filters on the left, which we'll talk about in more detail. Let's go ahead and look into getting full text. So we're going to go to this publication, Breast Cancer Survivorship. Okay, so we'll take a look at this results page. We see our title, we see some publication information and the date of publication at the top. We see author information, and then we see something called a PMID or PubMed ID. For those of you not familiar with PMIDs, this is a unique set of numbers that PubMed assigns to each of its publications. The numbers have no real significance. This is just a set of numbers that identify this specific publication. So PMIDs can be great to use if you're trying to find an article. You just type that PMID into that search bar and it will pop up. Additionally, if you are having trouble finding full text and you want to reach out to a librarian for assistance, it can be very helpful for us if you include the PMID, just so we can be sure that we are finding the right publication that you're looking for. All right, so we also have an abstract for this publication. PubMed has suggested some similar articles that would appear to be on a similar topic, which could be helpful. We also see articles that have cited this publication. And then I will just show you quickly, we also have MESH terms. Andy was speaking about these. These are medical subject headings used to used to index publications in PubMed that are supposed to facilitate searching. So just wanted to point those out to you. And that again is something we'll talk about more in depth in our advanced PubMed training. All right, so to get to full text, you see we have a few options for full text links, but you should always go to the red Get It button. This is the only button which is going to show you all the free full text options through Weill Cornell. Okay, so this takes us to a landing page, and then we see the link where we can find full text. All right, and so here is our publication. So if we want to download it, we can go here, and then we see we're able to download it in PDF or in EPUB format. So pretty straightforward and simple. Let's take a look at how to make a request through Interlibrary Loan. So in the event that while Cornell Medicine doesn't have access to a publication you're seeking, the librarians can request access through agreements we have with other libraries. So I'm going to look for an article that I happen to know we don't have access to, and I am entering the PMID here. Okay. So this is an article that I pulled for a literature search a few weeks back. So we'll go to Get Full Text. Okay, and so you can see I have a message, there's no full text available. We have the option to check full text at Cornell Ithaca. I happen to know that we don't have it through them either. So you want to click on Request from WCM Interlibrary Loan Services. All right, Iliad is the software we use for interlibrary loan. So we select our institution, and then I log in with my Seaweed. Okay, so this brings us to our interlibrary loan request form. And this has very nicely auto-filled. So there's not really too much that I have to do here, except scroll down to the bottom and hit Submit Request. I will tell you, if you are looking for a very recent publication, it probably will not autofill for you. But then you can very simply cut and paste the information from the PubMed entry. Make sure that you are hitting all the categories that have an asterisk, and any other supplementary information you can add is also helpful. And that is how you submit an ILL request. All right, so now that we've looked at full text and interlibrary loan requests, let's go back to our previous search and look at refining that a bit. So to get to your search history in PubMed, you want to click on this Advanced button up at the top. I know that might not seem like the most intuitive thing, but that's what you do. Click on Advanced. So this will take you to the Advanced Search Builder, which we will discuss in detail in our Advanced PubMed training. But scroll down to History and Search Details. And you can see that we can see our results from the breast cancer search down here. So you click on Results. All right, so here we are again. All right, let's take a look at our filters and see how we can refine this search a little bit. So up here for the first filter, we can see the span of publication dates that fall within the search dating all the way back to 1789. That's pretty far. So let's say I'm maybe really only interested in like the last 15 years or so. I can just move this dial and we'll set it to about 2000, oops. That can be a little buggy. 2005, there we go. All right, and you can already see the results are filtering based on this specification. If you wish to say go back only 10 years or 5 years, you can just select one of those filters. So there is a text availability filter. We do not really recommend using this. PubMed doesn't really know what you have free access to in terms of full text as a member of the Weill Cornell Medicine community. This is referring more to PubMed Central. So that is one filter that we don't really recommend using. However, the article type filter might be more helpful to you. So when you're selecting publications for your research, you'll probably want to consider using studies that have a high level of evidence. You may want to look at randomized control trials or observational studies or guidelines. So we have a few options for article types here, but there are more if you click on additional filters. And as you can see, there are actually quite a lot to choose from. Let's say for this search that I want to use guidelines. So I select it and I hit show. And then it pops up here and I actually have to select it again. All right. And we'll look at some more of the filters. Okay. With PubMed, you can filter by species. So you may want to filter for human studies only. There are a lot of selections to filter by language. In the event you speak more than one language, you have a lot of selections. You can filter by sex. I'll select female here. You can select certain subjects, certain journals, and you can also filter by age group. Let's see, maybe I will look at middle-aged here. Okay, so again, all of these categories pop up and you need to click on them again to set the filters. Okay, so now we're narrowed down to 51 results. So we have really narrowed the search. Just another note, if you switch from doing one search in PubMed and then you want to do a different search, make sure you reset all your filters. Otherwise, PubMed will assume that you want to keep them. All right, something else we can look at are your display options. So this search is sorted by best match. That means that PubMed has used its algorithms and tried to show you what they think are the best matches based on your search criteria. So with best match, the better results should be towards the beginning of the search. You should not have to scroll through page after page to get any good search results. However, you can play around with this. There's also the option to sort by most recent. So if you want to see the most up-to-date publications on the study, you can switch that around. Additionally, so these search results are in summary format, but you can change to abstract. If you would prefer to not have to click on every publication to read the abstract, you can have that all on one page if you prefer, as well as seeing the links to full text. So that might be helpful if you're reviewing a lot of publications in one go. And additionally, so PubMed defaults to showing you 10 results per page, but you can change that if you want to make that larger. All right, I'll go back to best match. So if I decide that I like this search, I'm going to want to save this search. And the way to do that is to save a search through your NCBI account, which you may need to create if you have not done that. So to do that, you are going to go to this login button at the top of the screen and click on that. All right, so I'm being prompted to log in because I have an account. But if you don't have an account, it will prompt you to create one. And that process is very easy. It is just entering your name, a password, and whatever email address you want to link to your NCBI account. We generally recommend using a personal email. That way, if you move on to another institution, you will continue to keep your NCBI account linked to your email, so there's no issues with that. All right, so I will log in here. All right, so to save a search, you are going to click on Create Alert. So I know that might also not seem the most intuitive, but you can see you're going to save a search and create an alert for this particular search. If you wish, you can change the name of your saved search. Like I can save it as June of 20. And then you see your search terms. If you'd like to be emailed updates of new search results, you can elect to do that. That can be helpful if you're doing sort of a long-term project and you want to get new updates on what's happening in the literature. You can choose how often you want to receive updates. what day of the week you want to receive them, how many you want to receive. There's lots that you can do. Search is saved. So to find that search at a later date, you go into your NCBI account. We can see here that I'm logged in. And then you click on Dashboard. Great, okay. So here on the right under Save Searches, we can see the search that we just did. And it will also show you how many new articles have come since you've run the search. Something else helpful with the NCBI dashboard is the recent activity. So as long as you're logged into your NCBI account, it will log all of your search activity, which if you don't like that, you can turn it off. But I find this incredibly helpful in the event that you forget to save a search or unexpectedly need to look at some articles you were looking at, a few weeks back. This is very helpful. And I know this has my activity saved back, going all the way back to April, maybe even before that. So just another helpful feature for you to be aware of. Let's see. And just a couple other things I wanted to quickly show you. Oh, actually, let me follow my own advice and go back in through our website. Let's see. All right. So going back to our search, the only other things I wanted to show you, there are some other options if you would like to send yourself, if you want to email yourself some articles that you've come up with in the search. All you have to do is select them and hit the email button. Since I'm logged in through my NCBI, your email autofills, and you can, use the article that you selected, or if you want all the results on the page, you can email that, and you can select the format and then just email it to yourself. Additionally, if you need to send PubMed citations to a citation manager like EndNote, you click on the Send To button and Citation Manager. So you decide which of the results you want to send, and then you select Create File. So this will download. And then when you go to open the file, it will ask you what program you want to use to open it, and you should select EndNote as that program, and then they should appear. All right, well, I believe that brings us to the end of our demo. Do we have any questions that came up?
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, sorry, Andy. You had one while you were demonstrating the filtering options, Carrie. Why didn't the initial checkboxes apply, causing you to have to check them again?
What? When I was doing the filtering options.
Yeah, when you were, yeah.
Okay, yes, I understand. Okay, so I think we were talking about the additional filters.
Yes, yes.
Yes, so that is correct. You have to click it in the search box, you hit show, and then it pops up here and you have to select it again. To be honest, I don't really know the reason why you have to do it. This is just sort of a quirk with this particular filter in PubMed, but yes, that is absolutely what you have to do.
This is Andy. I think the rationale for this particular interface design choice by PubMed is because there are so many potential filters that you can choose from that they want people to be able to, they want to limit the number that they're showing by default. And so not everything shows up by default. And you also, this is one of the nice things about creating a personal NCBI account, is you can actually save your favorite filters and PubMed will remember it if you're logged in. So the reason you have to, it's a little counterintuitive, but the reason you have to do that sort of double clicking is first to get them to show up and second to enable them. And that's just to cut down on the amount of real estate on that filter left-hand bar on the screen.
Gotcha. Thank you, Andy. Let's see. Well, I can stop sharing my screen. Andy, if you want to continue with the PowerPoint.
Sure. All right. Here we go. Okay, we are running a little shorter on time than I had expected, so we're going to skip over a few of the polls that I'd planned. And I just want to make sure we have time to answer everyone's questions. So we do quickly want to share these resources for learning more after this. The big takeaway is please feel free to contact us at the library for further training, one-on-one consultation, PubMed troubleshooting, help with advanced setting up a search. We offer a plethora of services related to PubMed and are happy to field any questions you have. You just go to the homepage on our website and look for the Ask Us link, and there are also a couple of forms or a couple of links on the side of the page to ask a reference question. And we'll do our best to help you with whatever your needs are. Also, if you would be interested in a longer PubMed refresher training with more time for hands-on activities, email me, we can schedule something. We're happy to do it for like departmental teams, like a faculty meeting, or if you would like if you have a lab and you'd like your staff to get this training, we can do really personalized training based on your needs. All right. So what we covered today, we explained exactly what PubMed is, how it's different from search engines like Google. We looked at some key tasks and functionality you need to know as a searcher, including how to get full text and how to refine your search results. And we shared resources for getting help and learning more. We do have a session evaluation that we'd like everybody to take 1 or 2 minutes to complete. It's really brief, just 3 questions, and it'll help us improve this next time we offer this session. And while we are doing that, let me just pull up the chat. Actually, Vanessa, for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time pulling up the chat, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. We did get a question. Who is in charge of assigning mesh terms? Can you ask PubMed the terms you want in your publication?
That is a great question. So when you are submitting, so for example, if you're an author and you're submitting a publication to a journal, very often you will be asked what keywords you'd like assigned to the article. So that's kind of your opportunity to get that feedback into PubMed. The publisher then sends the record on to PubMed with their suggestions for indexing. And then what happens is National Library of Medicine has people who work as indexers. They're trained in indexing for PubMed. And so they'll read the article and they will assign mesh headings based on the very specific criteria that they're trained to evaluate articles on. You can always submit a ticket to PubMed. Let me see if I can exit my PowerPoint and I can pull up the, let's see. Okay, if we're going, everybody can see my desktop.
Yep.
Hopefully. Oh, that's not what we wanted. Bear with me, folks. My internet is now being a little slow. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so you should be able to, it's, I think, oh, you'd go to the support center if you have anything you want to change about the indexing of the article that you've authored, and you can put in a ticket with the support center. Excellent question.
We had one more, which was, will you discuss the role of EndNote in dealing with PubMed?
Sure. So EndNote is a reference manager. You use it to basically deal with references when you're writing a manuscript or any kind of publication or a grant submission. And EndNote is a way, so PubMed is sort of the source of the data, mostly articles as we discussed. And EndNote is a software that you can sort of, you can pull the references from PubMed. They contain all the data, and you just dump them in your your EndNote library, and then you're able to then use EndNote in conjunction with either Microsoft Word, or it may even be possible to do it with other programs like Google Docs to actually insert the references and get everything formatted in the manuscript. EndNote is kind of a big topic, so if you're interested in getting some training in EndNote, shoot me an email and we can set something up. I see another question. Is there a preferred browser for PubMed through Weill Cornell? Not really. PubMed has been designed to work in pretty much all modern browsers. I don't really know if anybody else at the library, actually, Carrie, do you know at NYP and the clinical sites, do you folks have any issues with like older Internet Explorer and PubMed?
That is a great question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. In general, everything should work as intended. If you do run into problems, feel free to contact us. Excellent question. Any other questions?
I don't see any in the chat, although I did get a personal question about whether I will be sending out the information that Andy and Carrie provided today. The answer is yes. So I will have all the links that were provided today. I'll send it to you via email, the email address that you used to register for the session. And I'll also have the recording. You should have all of this probably by tomorrow morning, since I have to edit the video just a little bit. But you'll have everything and can refer to it, you know, as needed. But it looks like those are all the questions. So if that's all we have, we can wrap up the session. Andy and Carrie, anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, thank you very much for facilitating and organizing all of this, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa.
No problem at all. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. Have a good one, and look out for an email from me with all this info. Thanks so much.
Have a great day, everybody. Remember to vote.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.